Hi, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I have a couple of books that I would like to talk about with you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first book that I want to talk about is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. And this is a young adult mystery thriller novel. And this is the story of 17-year-old Enchanted, who is an aspiring singer. And while at a singing competition, she comes across a very well-known, established 28-year-old singer by the name of Corey Fields, who, after she doesn't win that singing competition, he comes up to her and feeds her this long spiel about how he can do great things for her and how he can really help out her career. And he ends up putting his number into her phone, and their kind of relationship takes off from there. It starts off friendly. We know that something's off about him, and she's only 17 and he's 28. That's a huge age difference to begin with, and he seems really interested in her right from the very beginning, and she's obviously infatuated with him. And it starts off friendly enough with just text messages and phone calls back and forth. He ends up just popping up at her school on their prom to perform. And then he ends up being able to talk her parents into letting her perform with him on tour so that they can sing together and that she can do background vocals for him. And so we just kind of watch as their relationship turns from a working relationship to this really toxic mess. Now, we do learn at the very beginning of the story that Corey is murdered, and we learned that Enchanted is found at the scene of the crime. So the story is told in the past as we're following their relationship, and then we're getting snippets of the present and how they're dealing with handling his death and figuring out who actually committed this crime and whether or not Enchanted did it. So as far as their relationship goes, this book deals with a lot of heavy topics. We're dealing with the grooming, especially since there is such a huge age gap with their relationship. We are dealing with sexual abuse. We are dealing with PTSD. We are dealing with other mental health issues. We are dealing with the abuse of power. We are dealing with how hard it is for women, especially women of color, how hard it is for us to report, when things happen to us, like when people are stalking us, when we have to report like a rape case, and how hard it is for people to believe us when we report different things like this. So this book touches on a lot of different things, and I actually like how this author was able to bring up all those different topics and how it flowed throughout the story, and how it wasn't just thrown in there for the sake of just being thrown in there. So I really did like that. Now, I did only rate this book 3 stars because I did have a couple of problems with the story. One of my problems was how the story was told, because I did listen to this on audio, and I do think how the timeline was a little confusing. Like I said, it was kind of like told in like a past, present kind of situation, and towards the end when everything kind of came together, it was a little confusing, because while we were kind of, I guess you would consider that the past, when the past and the present came together, it was hard to determine that in the audiobook. Maybe if I was reading it physically, it wouldn't have been so hard to determine that, but it was kind of difficult to get that in audio form. So that was kind of confusing for me as far as like the timeline. I also kind of feel like this book, we know, is really reminiscent of the R. Kelly situation. And which is fine. The author specifically said in the author's note at the end of the book that she took inspiration from the R. Kelly situation, and I have no problem with that. But I just kind of felt like this was everything that kind of happened with the R. Kelly situation was in this book. And I mean, yeah, you kind of had to put in your own details in order to make it your own. But for the most part, it was like R. Kelly's situation verbatim. You know, it was the hanging out at the high schools looking for the young girls. It was the finding these young girls and trying to sell them a dream of being famous. It was the people that are hanging around him and knowing exactly what he's doing and not saying anything. It was the him having a wife and not telling anybody that he had a wife. It was the kidnapping part. That was another thing that was in here. And, you know, not letting these people have any communication with their family. That's the same thing that a Chance was going through. It was, you know, all these people that were coming out and having all these stories against him. That's the same thing Enchanted and other girls went through in this book. That's the same thing that happened with R. Kelly. You know, there was, you know, a point where all his music got banned. That's the same thing that happened in this story. It was just, I kind of felt like it took so much from R. Kelly that it was hard to not keep thinking about R. Kelly when reading this. So that kind of took away some of my enjoyment, because that's all that I could think about when I was reading it. I was like, man, this just reminds me of R. Kelly. Another thing that just kind of frustrated me with this book was our main character's parents, because I just felt like nobody really did their due diligence when it came to letting her go off with him on tour in the first place. Because she's 17 years old and her parents let her go on this tour, and apparently, you know, when she went on tour, she was supposed to be watched by his assistant, who's an older lady by the name of Jessica. But nobody did any background information on this person. Nobody did any checks to make sure that this person was legit. And this Jessica person had them sign this document, which no one actually read, which come to find out, you know, this document that they signed was a contract for her to be signed to his record label, and nobody knew that. And it's like nobody did what they were supposed to do to try to protect their daughter. And it's like, yeah, they tried to do things afterwards after she was already there, and they tried to get her back, but it's like nobody did anything on the front end to try to make sure that they knew where they were sending their daughter. So that was kind of frustrating. But overall, I really enjoyed this story. I really enjoyed, even though I think that the timeline kind of got confusing toward the end, I do like the murder mystery. I liked all the heavy topics. It was hard to get through. It was hard to read at times, but I do think that it was a story that needed to be told, because even though it was reminiscent of something that we already heard, it's still something that happened. It's still something that is happening, and it's something that needs to be discussed. And I think it was an overall a good story, and I would highly recommend. So the next book that I want to talk about is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this is adult historical fiction. And this is a story about our main character by the name of Evelyn Hugo, who is this really famous retired actress who has decided that she wants to do a tell-all, which is crazy because she is someone that doesn't do a lot of press. This is something that people would die to get, and she had originally said that she would do an article with this magazine called Vivant, and the magazine was really excited, and they had a writer and photo shoot and all that already picked out. But Evelyn came back and said, nope, I want to speak to this specific writer, and that's the only person I'm going to talk to when I don't want to do a photo shoot. This is what I want. And so reluctantly, the head person in charge of that magazine sent over this writer by the name of Monique. And when Monique met with Evelyn, Evelyn told her that she wants Monique to write her tell-all. And once she writes the tell-all, when Evelyn is dead, she wants her to publish the tell-all book and pocket all the money that she makes from it. And Monique is stunned, she's shocked, and she's confused as to why Evelyn has chosen her out of all the people and all the writers in the world that she could have chosen, why she chose her to write her tell-all. So this is basically what that story is. Evelyn and Monique having this conversation, and Evelyn is giving Monique her life story. And so we are following Evelyn as she is getting her start in Hollywood, how she started out in Hollywood, and we are following her relationships and her 7 husbands. The main thing that we find out is, even though she has 7 husbands, we are finding out who Evelyn's true love is, and we are actually finding out why she wanted Monique to be the one to do her tell-all. So this book it's a really popular story, and I enjoyed it. This was another one that I only gave 3 stars. Like I said, I listened to it on audio, and it took me a little while to get into it. So it's being told primarily through Evelyn's point of view, because we are getting Evelyn's story, but we are also kind of getting Monique's story too. And I didn't really like Monique's story. So Monique is dealing with reservations, working with the magazine. She is trying to find her place with the magazine and trying to become a better writer. And then she's also dealing with a divorce and trying to feel better about herself with that. And I just kind of thought her parts were boring. And then the beginning of the story, I felt like it was kind of slow, and I almost DNF'd this book. I almost put it down because I could not get into it. But once we finally got into Evelyn's first husband, I was good to go, and it got really interesting. Once the story started going, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I liked how dramatic everything was in the story. I didn't realize how much drama you can have, but I guess if somebody has been married 7 times, you can have nothing but drama in a story, and I'm here for the drama, and I really like that. I also liked how the author really made Evelyn seem like a real person. And if I didn't know that this was a fiction book, I really would have thought that there was an actress somewhere out there by the name of Evelyn Hugo. Like, the author did a really good job of bringing this character to life. I will definitely give her credit for that. I also liked the twist at the end, because like I said, there was a reason why Evelyn had chose Monique to be the one to write this tell-all, and that twist at the end, I was not expecting it. Throughout the whole story, I was trying to figure out why this woman chose this girl to write this story, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out. And when we finally got it, I was like, oh my gosh, I could not believe it. So that that took me for a loop, and so that actually bumped up my enjoyment of that a little bit, because that caught me off guard. So I really liked that. One of the things that I did not like, actually, even though I liked that Evelyn seemed like such a really good person, even though I liked how real Evelyn seemed, I did not like Evelyn as a person. And I think as far as her relationship goes, I think she was her own worst enemy. She was very selfish. She was money hungry. She only thought about herself. Like I said in this story, she had a one true love, and there's a reason why, and I don't want to spoil it. There's a reason why she couldn't really be with this person in the way that she wanted to, but there are things that she could have done to prevent a lot of heartache, but she only thought about herself. I've never seen somebody that was so selfish, and she always would realize, like, her selfishness after the fact. And it's like, if you would just stop for a second and just think about the stuff that you do and think about the stuff that you say, you would be a lot happier. But I mean, overall, I just don't think I connected with it as much as other people did. I still liked it, still liked the twist at the end, still liked the overall story. It just, just was okay for me. So 3 stars. Still would recommend if you haven't read it. I feel like I'm the only person who has not read this book, but it was good. Would highly recommend. So that is all that I have for you guys today. So please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.